Hello and welcome. The Indian Drug Manufacturers Association represents a substantial part of the Indian drug manufacturing capacity, a critical input at any time, but more so at a time like this when there is a war being waged against a deadly virus, the coronavirus. Now, let's try and understand what Indian drug manufacturers are doing, what is their capability, their capacity, and to what extent are we at all facing any challenges, if so, in the production of critical or crucial drugs that we will all hopefully not consume or not need. To do that, I'm joined by the IDMA Director General, Daara Patel. Mr. Patel, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure, and really indeed a pleasure to speak to you after a long time, Govind. So let me tell you briefly, Indian Drug Manufacturers Association is the biggest and the oldest body of pharmaceutical and bulk drug manufacturers in the country. We have about 900 plus members who are actually into pharmaceutical and bulk drug manufacturing. Plus we have some 100 plus associate members who are involved into various ancillary and other support for the pharmaceutical industry. And we are situated throughout the country. Now, we make every type of category of drugs. There is no therapeutic that we don't make in India and by IDMA. As you know, there are other associations also, but we are the largest and we make everything. You name it and we make it, whether it's antiretroviral, oncology, cardiology, CNS, any amount of antipyretic, painkillers, whatever. Everything is made by us. We are totally self-sufficient.
Right. So tell us about what are the biggest category of drugs that we make in India, even in normal times, and then we'll come to the kind of drugs that we will require for fighting coronavirus or COVID.
I think the anti-malarial drugs, the antipyretic drugs, painkillers, anything to do with stomach disorders, anti-cardio drugs. Now, even diabetes drugs, we have a very big manufacturing base. So practically, these are the type of drugs, anti-malarials, anti-infectives. These are the type of drugs we make in huge quantities, very huge quantities.
Okay. Now, tell us about the kind of drugs that we need and might need to fight coronavirus.
You see, the government has said that as it is, there is nothing like a 100% cure for coronavirus, right? Mm-hmm. You're aware. Right? Yeah. In no country they've said, but it's a hit and miss type of a thing that's happening. But by and large, we have been told that products like, say, hydroxychloroquine, then paracetamol, then azithromycin, then all types of antiretroviral products. These are the ones the government is trying out on patients who are affected. Now, the severely affected ones who are in ICU, the government has given us some directives that we must stock these type of products, which could be like arrhythmia drugs or analgesics, sedatives, antibiotics, antimicrobial, then the other type of vasopressor drugs, the vasopressor drugs. So these are the ones we are supposed to stockpile and keep it for an emergency for all ICU patients. Otherwise, patients are being cured, and especially the ones who are exposed to patients or the frontline healthcare people, as a prophylactic, they are recommended to take azithromycin and hydroxychloroquine tablets.
Right. And we have and we have enough of this. I mean, enough of this for the foreseeable future, and that's what you've said in public as well in the past.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, if you see today, the two major categories like anti-malarial and anti-infectives, we've got stocks as of now which will last us for 60 days. And of course, some production is going on because of this lockdown challenge. I'll come back to you on that later on. But despite all this, we've got a 60 days stock lying with us.
And what is, what is 60 days? Is that a good thing or not so good thing?
It's a good thing. 60 days is a good thing. And this is 60 days as of 15th of April. And production continues every day. Like say today, production is not full blast because we are not allowed to enter the factory more than 50% of the people. Now these 50%, although some of them have left, gone away for certain instances, they were beaten up by the police or they were stopped, they were stranded, whatever. So by and large, all our companies throughout the country, if you take a thumb rule, we don't have more than 30 to 40% attendance of people, at best 50%. And the production capacity that is utilized is also between 40 to 50%. So even with that, we are quite confident of meeting our requirement. Absolutely.
Right. Now, also explain to us, roughly 50% of the products that your association members make is exported. And now, to what extent is those drugs being exported that might be required today? Do we have enough in accounting for the export need, or a rise in export needs, as we've seen, particularly in the case of hydroxychloroquine?
See, hydroxychloroquine, let's be honest, was not a very high demand product. It was only used for anti-rheumatoid patients and anti-malarial and for lupus. But we had a capacity already, and we also have capacity to manufacture the intermediate for it. We are not dependent on any other country. Maximum is made by us. So, and we have got capacity. So all our major suppliers, there are two very major suppliers like IPCA and Zydus Cadila. Plus there are some other ones also, like Glenmark, and so many others are there. So total requirement is absolutely met by us very comfortably, plus whatever the other countries want, we are able to supply. But we need to be careful only of two things. You see, because of this epidemic, people are panicking. And that's why even in the Indian market, everybody goes to the retailer and buys 2-3 months stock, thinking that it will not be available. So we have told AIOCD, they are a very big body of the chemists and druggists in our country, and they have in turn informed their members that please request your consumers to desist from panic buying and assure them that we've got stocks. You come every month and take it, we'll give you. Same thing with other countries. Like if a country...
Could these have been bought without prescriptions even earlier?
Yes. It's not allowed, but there are instances where it is given. But actually it should not be given. And now the IOCD is becoming very strict about it, especially in today's times.
Right. Another input point for you is obviously the drugs that go into making the drugs come from China. And could you tell us about what is, I know in February, for instance, you were having a problem because Chinese factories were shut down. Could you tell us to what extent are we dependent on imports for the inputs for the drugs that we make, and where does that stand today?
I think it's a question being asked at the wrong time, so we don't create any panic. But yes, we are largely dependent on Chinese materials. If you see in the last 20-30 years, because of the Chinese materials prices coming down, our people thought it fit to buy. And because you see, the pharmaceutical industry, unfortunately, is a very highly regulated market. So every rupee we save, we'll be able to be very competitive. That was the only purpose. So we shifted all our buying from China. But now gradually with government support, we are trying to come back. It'll take time. It might take us at least 6 months to another year or even 2. But we will definitely see that we are very less dependent on China and very self-reliant on the intermediates first, and then the APIs. But as far as these products are concerned, as far as these products are concerned, we don't have any cause to worry because China has started supplying. And we have started using that material, so there should not be a problem. But then you see, if you see what happened 5 years ago, when the Chinese government came down heavily on their industry for flouting the pollution norms, there was a little shortage because a lot of them closed down. That time we ran to the government for support, but nothing happened because everything became hunky-dory. We only hope and pray that once this COVID thing goes out, this tempo should not die down. And the government, all stakeholders, the associations and the API manufacturers must join hands to see that we become self-sufficient.
Right. And last couple of questions, Mr. Patel. So what about distribution of the drugs that are manufactured? Is that something, and then that really comes into the lockdown phase that we are in. Is that something that...
it's a very big challenge. If you see, right from the 21st of March, this problem started. And we have a first-hand information in Maharashtra, at least, that unfortunately in Bhiwandi, the godowns were closed. People who were coming inside Bhiwandi from other villages were stopped from coming. The police came down very heavily. So then we met the chief minister. We explained to the secretary in Maharashtra. And ultimately they decided, okay, we will give you passes and all those who have a valid pass will be allowed to move about. So then the distribution started becoming a little better, but it's not as good as it was before the lockdown. But hopefully it will improve now. Gradually it is improving. And what is happening is this, say Bhiwandi, which is the biggest area where the godowns are there. Unfortunately, Bhiwandi itself doesn't have any population where laborers can come and work. They're all from the neighboring villages. Now, because of this COVID, if it happens in some village, the Bhiwandi people are very strict and they will not allow these guys to come. Right. Or if they are told to come, then they will not be allowed to go back to their villages. So we can't put them up. Yeah, nobody has the type of facilities and money to put them up in hotels or put them anywhere for their food and all that. So it becomes very difficult. Now,
but what about the other parts of the country? Because this is Bhiwandi and Maharashtra or Mumbai.
Yeah. No, even if you see Chennai also has a problem. South there's a problem. Gujarat has a problem. Baddi is the worst affected because there also laborers outside Baddi are not allowed to come. Now, last week they allowed them with a rider that you must allow them to stay in Baddi, arrange for them to stay in your factory or have hotels. But all companies can't do it. The small and medium guys, they can't suddenly make arrangements to make people to stay in their factory or put them up in hotel. The big guns can do it. So that's going to be a very big challenge. And then we are told that don't keep more than 50% staff at one given time, which is good. Now they are sometimes not even giving us passes for 50%. Some of our members in Baddi, in the north, in Gujarat, they're having this problem. If they have 100 people working in a factory and they want 50, they are given permission for only 25. So they can't just run a line. Packaging lines can't be run.
Right.
That is a very big challenge for us. But we will certainly overcome. You know, the Indian pharma industry has that tenacity and we will certainly overcome it.
Right. Right. And the last question, really, I mean, and as we go forward, what would you tell those who are either concerned or just wanting to know how well equipped or geared the Indian drug manufacturers are at this point in the middle of this crisis?
Well, let me assure your viewers and your listeners through you that the Indian industry always has this in mind that we are for the patients. And we will do everything that is within our powers to see that we have enough people, enough raw materials. We work closely with the chemists and druggists. We work closely with the clearing agents, etc., to ensure that sufficient products are available. Okay, it may not be available in the quantity that was available earlier, but then we expect that same support from the public also. Don't panic. Don't buy 3 months stock. Buy every month. We assure you, you will get it. Another good thing, Govind, that is happening now is, you see, the pharma industry had 3-4 associations and everybody had different agenda. Now, fortunately, we have a single point agenda to see that our people are not starving of medicines. So IPA, the big body, the big brothers, we call them, OPPI, the multinationals, and IDMA. All three of us are working together. In fact, all the 3 association heads have a con call every day in the evening at a given time. All 3 of us. And we exchange ideas, we support each other. And I don't think there should be any problem. We will get over this. Very sure.
Great. And that's a good note to end on, that the entire industry has come together, including the multinationals, the Organization of Pharmaceutical Producers, yourself and the others. And that is surely good news for all of us. Mr. Patel, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.